I'm Matt Ramage.
I'm Dustin.
Rat staff. We're in Saskatoon. This is my photography studio. We're in a building called the 220 in the heart of Riversdale. And we decided to make a TV show.
It's called Before the Dust Settles. Matt's a good friend of mine. He's an entrepreneur. He's a big thinker. He's a schemer. He's a problem solver.
Same with Dustin.
And
Dustin's all those things.
We have conversations about the things that we're trying to overcome and the problems that we're trying to solve. And we thought it would be fun to have these conversations and record them and share them with our friends and our family that may be interested, and meet some interesting people along the way.
This is episode 1. Today you're going to learn about us. Dustin shares about being an entrepreneur, some of his passions with his company Bench Metrics, which you'll hear about, and just like kind of the path he's taken in his life, and a little bit about his schedule, which is fun.
And we talk with Matt, like I talk with Matt about juggling his life, about the idea of being a creative and sort of what that looks like, and how you grow into becoming a confident creative and problem solver for your clients and for the people that you're working with, and just all around another great conversation. So yeah.
And this is just episode 1. So
we've done this a couple times, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So anyways,
enjoy.
Yeah.
Sweet. Why the heck are we here?
I don't really know. I'm starting to get more and more anxiety the closer we got to this moment. Today, and even to right now. The whole thing is like kind of stressing me out now that I know that we're doing it. We're gonna start posting these.
So this is a show called
Before the Dust Settles is what we've landed on.
And it's a show, I think I've kind of figured out what the title, what it's dedicated to.
Yeah, you're better at this than I am.
So this is a show dedicated to real conversations with people exercising new ideas in their world. So what that means is, so this is kind of a episode 1, but a retrospective, because we've already filmed a bunch. Mm-hmm. And we decided to do this because we kind of learned what it was while making it. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, and I think what motivated me to do it might be a little bit different than what motivated you to do it initially. We're in an increasingly digital world, and more of life's moments are being captured and shared online. And I sometimes struggle with finding an authentic way of sharing some of my life online. And I often like to just make a big joke out of things. And although that's fine, I do think that it would be nice for me to find certain instances where I can express a little bit of my personality and my interests for anybody that may be interested, even though I'm sure there won't be many, but in a way that I feel comfortable with and I feel is representative of me. And I'm sure there'll be many moments where I regret many of the things that I say, but hey, this is for me, this is what drew me to the idea of doing this.
Yeah, and like the long form part of it, where it's not cut, like we just gotta have real conversations, like
right.
Candidly. And what I actually, probably my favorite thing I've noticed is like, it always starts with this like, so,
right,
where they were very aware of the cameras. I mean, even right now. But then like, as the conversation gets going, it like kind of dissolves away and turns into, well, the format we have dissolves it away into like a real conversation.
And I think we're naturally, with practice and by doing it, we're getting a little bit better at just sort of moving past that initial formality of the fact that it is structured. Because at the end of the day, one of the main reasons that you and I are doing this together is because we've shared so many great conversations just in our personal lives, and I like spending time with you, and what a great way to double up on that and do something else that, there's some personal reasons for me to do this, like I just shared. But to do it with a friend and to still be able to create a great excuse to hang out with you and to have great conversations and to be introduced to a lot of new people, which we've been able to do. How many people have we talked to already?
14?
14.
I think it's 14.
We've talked to like musicians and people that are sort of influencing tech within the province. We've talked to people working within the music industry and in music production.
We could name drop.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, should we name drop?
Sure.
So coming out this season is some of the highlights. What would you say?
You know what? I don't really want
we're not going to tell you.
I'd almost rather you'll see. I think what's more important actually in this episode is that the people that I'm going to share this with, I'd like for them to know a little bit more about who you are.
Oh yes, and you.
And yeah, probably for way more people that know you that will be influenced by this. I want your audience, Matt. I want them to know about me. So yeah, I think that's more important because we don't do a lot of back and forth between us when we have
the guests
in, and I actually do think that for the sustainability of this, and who knows, now that these are going to actually go out into the universe, maybe if a couple people watch it, they'll start giving some feedback on what they like and what they think sucks. Although, we're kind of like the Titanic now because there's 13 already done. So any moves that we make now aren't going to be seen for a very long period of time. But I'm sure we'll learn lots here. But yeah, I think more importantly...
Let's start with you. I'm going to interview you.
Sure. Okay.
I'm going to treat it like I'm trying to pull the layers apart for people I know.
Okay.
So I know you, but not everybody knows you. So.
Sure. Yeah.
Dustin, you're an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
We've been friends for 6 years now or something like that?
No.
Or 7?
No. We've been friends for I've been in the building for 6 years, and I'm certain we haven't been friends for that long. So we've only been friends for probably maybe 5 years or 4.5 years or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. There was a bit of a barrier. I think I come across as being a little bit arrogant sometimes. So, and also I'm competitive, and I think you're pretty competitive, and right out of the gate, it's really easy to be like, who's that guy? Don't like the cut of his jib. But
so okay, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Just to pull apart sort of some commonality we have. What do you in your perception? What's sort of the common ground between you and me?
I think you're a problem solver, and I think you're not afraid to really take ownership of problems and to just start working on them and fixing them. And you don't look for permission. You just kind of do it, and you like talking things out and sort of scheming about them. And immediately I was attracted to that because I find that's a thing that attracts me to entrepreneurship or business building or working with other companies in their problems. That's what I love to do. And so I think that's really where our friendship grew from, and everything else is sort of a byproduct. But I think the most important thing, keeping us as close friends is the fact that I find it so refreshing to talk to somebody like you about the problems that I have, because you're very easy to have a dialogue with about those problems, and you're thinking about things that I'm not thinking about, and then you're vocalizing them so that we can have a conversation about it and I can sort of work through it. And so, and from my perspective, that's why we're friends.
I like that. I want you to share a little bit about what you do as a career. So let's take it a little bit bigger. I actually start with what your company, your main company right now, and then we'll go a little bigger.
Okay, so I started a company called Unink Marketing Creative Agency. I've been doing that for 6 years. When I started that company, I was co-working while working for autotrader.ca as a coworker in the building, because AutoTrader had shut down their Saskatoon office and I was sick of working from home. I've been doing that for the last 6 years, and we help businesses with their online strategy, or organizations with their online strategy. That's everything from figuring out that their website isn't going to hack it for the objectives and goals that their company has, so redeveloping websites, helping with transitioning advertising dollars and strategy to online mediums, helping them figure out how to record a return on their investment and how to track the performance of that stuff, and then strategy that comes with that. So that's sort of from like a high level what Unink does.
And then the name, like I like the name because it's like very telling of the services.
Yeah.
Are you tired of it?
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't really like talking. Like, yeah, it's like very. It's not really. That's not layered. That's just pretty self-explanatory as far as what it is. But I think
just so everybody knows.
We're helping businesses transition, whether it's their thinking, their some of their strategy, some of the way that their culture is, to being and flourishing more online. So social media
versus
the things that more established companies are comfortable with, which is more traditional advertising outlets, more traditional procedures and operations within their company, more traditional ways of engaging and communicating with staff and employees and organizing documents and files and collaborating. It's just sort of like the mindset of moving your business online and being comfortable with using new technology and engaging with members of your staff in new ways, and being open to the idea of new roles and responsibilities within a company. All things that established businesses that maybe don't have a trusted next generation person close by that's well versed in some of this stuff, they may need help with. So
I'm gonna just share an example that I think is pretty cool from the outside looking in.
Okay.
So like everybody knows, you go to Amazon, you search for something, and it kind of follows you around the internet, or Wayfair. Like those kind of companies. You look at a couch or you look at a toothbrush, and you go on Facebook and you see the ads. Mm-hmm. Like that's pretty neat. And like I know that you're able to do that for your clients, where like down to even the SKU of what product, like and this isn't just what you do, but like I find it really impressive. You're making like these technologies, like you're not just saying, hey, making an ad, hey, buy my thing or visit my store. It's like you're helping small businesses compete with, or take advantage of that tech, which I think is really cool. And I think like just from the outside looking in, like I don't know, like the traditional agencies, like they need people who are like on top of that, and it's like I don't know, like I think that's where you get a lot of leverage, is just like an entrepreneur and like a company owner, like you're leading that for your clients, and you have opinions about it, you have even experience, and I think that's just a small case study of kind of like what I find really interesting about what you do, like, and it keeps growing, like it changes, because like
yeah, well, that's okay. So the fun thing about what I do is I'm just trying to keep up with what I think are valid trends that are happening in tech that businesses can jump on board with to try and engage in new tactics and to help fulfill their strategies online. And data is often one of the main drivers for new tactics that businesses are using to try and grow their brands on the internet. And I think we're all very comfortable with the business model that Facebook and Google and other tech giants, even like Amazon, they all share. This expertise in understanding that technology is what's fueling their businesses and what's fueling the future growth of their companies. And so businesses like mine, we get to sort of like latch on to those big behemoths and just start using and playing with the tools that they're making available. But the way for us to use those in the most creative and interesting ways is by being able to help our clients exploit the data, or not exploit, but like use the data that they're collecting, whether it's knowingly or passively or collecting anyways. So examples of that are like, you have your email accounts that have been set up for many years, and everybody in your company has been emailing hundreds of different people every year. You have an email list, and that email list can be used to find users that are on Facebook and on different social media platforms and are on Google and are on third-party websites, and use them to create custom audiences that can be further segmented in the future to provide very clear and specific targeting for advertising or for different purposes, really. And that's just like one example of how small businesses, even though they don't even really think about the fact that they're collecting data, can leverage that data in the future to help push forward their business interests. And so again, like that's just one cool thing that we get to do, but really, like, this whole thing just moves so fast. So part of my job is helping implement these things, and the other part of it is trying to validate which ones are still too early days for businesses to really try and use in some meaningful strategy, and which sort of technologies are still a little bit too early and may not be worth the time or energy yet.
Well, I find the whole thing super interesting, just like the way the world is changing, and it's like, I feel like some people think it'll move, it's just transitioning to something, but I feel like that's not actually how it's going to ever be again. I feel like, well, just like it's always going to be in transition. Like things are like, you go from, it's not just transitioning from like print to digital, like it's like literally just like going to keep growing, like the way businesses use the internet, the way they use data.
Yeah, well, people are just trying to solve problems all the time. Like that's all tech really is.
Mostly motivated by like financial gain.
Sure.
Like most of it is.
Yeah, but like real human beings don't really give a crap about tech. Real human beings are just trying to solve problems. Like, or they're trying to accomplish things. They don't really care how they do it. They don't care what the technology is that they're using, just as long as they're solving problems.
Yeah.
And
so let's talk about solving problems. Let's talk about bench metrics. So
that's my second. That's sort of like my baby. That's my passion project, I guess. Like I love what I do every day with Unink. But one of the common questions that I get from businesses that I work with from an analytics and reporting standpoint is like a very general question. When I'm showing them their trends, their performance trends online within regards to their marketing efforts, they'll see trends going up or down, and they'll often ask, like, am I doing all right? Like within the grand scheme of things, like relative to my competitors, am I doing all right? And that's a question that can't confidently be answered from a marketing standpoint as of right now. And that's because the data that I use to help my clients interpret and understand their trending and their performance within their marketing, that is all private information, as it should be. But because it's private, they can't easily compare their performance to anybody else's. But this is like the solution, like what we've come up with is something that's happened in many industries and in many different applications in the past. But it's basically the idea of like Benchmetrics, which is the company that's facilitating this, is basically a membership group. And companies basically sign on to be a member within one of the industries that we track. And they say, okay, we're willing to provide our data, our trend performance information. In return, we would like to know what our percentile ranking of our performance is relative to other businesses like ours. We keep all of the actual business identifiable information or personally identifiable information anonymous, and it's all within an aggregate. But at the end of the day, it provides businesses with an understanding of when your automotive dealership has 15,000 website sessions and X many people look at your cars, or X many people send forms in, or X many people perform this function. This is what percentile your business performed in relative to other dealerships like yours.
So why is that good? Like, what problem does that solve?
Well, I think it solves a few problems. One is it peels back a layer and allows businesses to, first off, start evaluating the tactics and the performance of their third-party vendors, like their advertising partners or their marketing agencies, or their in-house staff, or whatever tactics that they've decided to rely on. And it creates sort of like common measurements that can be understood by everybody. You don't have to fully understand the strategy that your social media people are coming up with to know whether or not the end result, the performance is good or not when it's within a percentile. Like if you see that your referrals from social media, as a result of your social media strategy, whatever it is, if you see that your percentile performance in drawing in traffic from that medium is near the bottom, then all you need to know is that those tactics aren't working. Mm-hmm. And it's time to make a change. It also will allow for businesses or key decision makers that are managing resources, whether that's time or money, to better allocate those resources based on what's working and what isn't. So I think it's a very simple way of saying either you're on the right track, or like no, you got to do something different because you're near the bottom. So that's like sort of the key thing that it's solving. It's just making things really simple. It's making analytics less intimidating and just sort of giving like a yes or no.
I like that. And it's all automated. So you have me on this with my company, and I like that I get an email every week with, like, I don't even have to log in. I get a scorecard, and it's pretty cool. So for me, it's like to log into analytics is like, yeah, so like that's what I do. And I'm like, great. Yeah, so I see whatever numbers it is. I'm like, I have no context. I got, and especially with like, as a photographer, like things have been switching so much to like, a lot of people, like just web traffic's down in general. Like people go to just Instagram or Facebook for that type of service.
I'll tell you that like today I read that less than half of all Google search queries result in a click. So, people, one of my coworkers asked me today, like, why is that? What do you think, like, why do you think that is? It's like, well, probably, like, and if anybody really thinks about it and thinks about their search habits, it's probably because you're looking for hours of operation, or you're looking for, a menu, or you're looking for a phone number or directions, and all of those things are accessible without clicking. And, that means that just web traffic, is down. And so the reason for having a website is shifting and changing, and making sure that whatever your theory is on why you have a website can be validated. That's important. And then knowing your relative performance in those metrics is also important. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
Tell me, we got a little bit of time before we got our 5-minute break. Tell me a little bit about your schedule.
Oh, man.
By the way, this has been a theme. Dustin kind of started this one, but I figured I'd ask him that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm usually, I don't eat breakfast. I'm usually at work by about between 7:30 and 7:45. I'm usually, which I hate to say, but I'm usually checking and managing my inbox for the first hour and a half of my day, potentially. then I am, I'm just sort of, I'm working until 11:45. I've been making a point in my life to try and get to the gym over the lunch break.
You've been killing it this year.
I've been going. I've gone more this year than I've ever gone in my life, and I mark it on a calendar, a physical calendar, every day that I go, and it means a lot to me to get that X on the calendar. And I'm just trying to reinforce positive habits. I would say that us doing this podcast, and I know that you would agree with me. I think you're the one that said it. What did you say? That this was an exercise in whatever, just in self-discipline in doing this.
I can't even remember.
It's something like that. Like, it is an exercise in self-discipline. Doing this, being here at the right time, us setting this all up and doing it, it's not easy to do. And it, like with anything like this, it requires repetition. It's one thing to make a big life-changing decision on December 31st that you're going to change your life for January 1. It's a totally different thing to make small incremental changes in your life and then just hold on to them for dear life. And it took me many years, and I'm not even certain that I'll be able to continue with some of the changes that I've made. But I've been
on track for 200 for the year. Right?
200 gym visits for the year. Yeah, that's the goal.
And not meek ones, but like
classes.
Hour-long classes.
An hour-long class or whatever. So do that, and then afternoon work. I'll usually work till about 5:30 or so, and then I'll come home, make supper, or my wife will make supper, and then try and do something fun in the evening. I bought a one wheel this year, and I really enjoy that, as you know, or go biking or something like that. Or sit on the couch and do nothing. I do that often too, or just watch YouTube videos. So, but I'm really trying to put different activities that I do within my life into one of three buckets: either health, family, or my wellness, which would be either financial wellness or mental wellness. So those for me are like the three buckets that I'm trying to more proactively assign my activities and my free time to. So like I just had to delete a game off of my phone finally that I've been a little bit addicted to because it doesn't fall into any one of those three buckets. We'll see how long I can last before I re-download it, but like I'm 24 hours in, which I'm really excited about.
There you go.
Yeah.
If this is episode 1, we should explain what it is. We got 2 parts. We break it up.
Right.
The show's aimed to be about 50 to 60 minutes, no longer.
And like, it'll be interesting to see how much of this people can actually get through. I'm sure we'll get some feedback on the format as well. We've already learned a little bit about the format, hey? Like, we were doing this, the first couple, we were just sort of walking aimlessly through the desert. And I think we had some that were like 2.5 hours long and didn't have any audio recording and didn't really have an agenda whatsoever. Not to say that these have a great agenda to them.
There's a format, though.
There is a format. And I'm sure as we continue on, like we'll start to develop a little bit more of an agenda. But the whole purpose of doing episode 1 right now is for us to, again, sort of make sure that people know who we are. For, the 7 people that I know that might watch this that may or may not know you. So let's talk about you for a second.
This is my favorite part of every conversation.
It's one of my favorite parts too.
I'm gonna talk about me.
Yeah. Well, you're good at it.
I'm so interested in you, but I'm so interested in me.
Oh, me too. Me too. But
I hate it, but I don't hate it.
I hate that you have to say just kidding. That's the one thing that I do hate about doing this kind of stuff, because I like being sarcastic, but when people don't know you and they're like watching your thing, you're like, man, that guy's a dick, because I play the dick role so well. But I don't actually want to be the dick, you know what I mean? Like, not actually.
He's very kind and nice.
You see that though? You balled it back to me like we were going to talk about you. But no, we're going to talk more about me.
My turn.
Okay, let's talk about you. So
I really like to.
Wow. I was gonna say so Matt Ramage, Studio D photography, MJ and Co. Like you're a photographer, right? Like that's what you do professionally. Is that right?
That is it.
Yeah. You know what I love? Like I'm just gonna jump right into what I love about you being a photographer first, and then we can talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. Like I'm sure we'll find something, but what I love about you being a photographer is a statement that you made a while ago about. I'm sure there's lots of photographers that are photographers because they find it to be a creative outlet and something that they can do to fulfill like a need that they have to be creative or to express themselves, and that's great. But you gave me a bit of a different answer as to how you perform as a photographer, and probably one of the reasons why you are a photographer, and that is that you are more of a, what did you call it? I forget what you called it. You were like...
You're referencing something I don't remember.
Really?
Oh, a craftsman.
Yeah, a craftsman.
Yes.
You're more of a craftsman than a creative, because... Well, maybe you should explain why you said that instead of me trying to explain it.
And even in the past week, I've kind of rethought about this.
You don't. I love that. I love that statement so much.
Well, okay. So here's what made me rethink it.
Okay.
So a lot of photographers call themselves artists, which is fine, and I've kind of like, I said that to you. I said I feel like I'm more of a craftsman than an artist because I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Like for, let's say, a wedding, like I'm literally photographing people kissing, hugging, walking, holding hands, church ceremonies, or the ceremony part and the receptions with everyone's got the shoe game and stuff. Like I'm photographing a very similar thing, and I'm like, that's a craftsman. But then I thought about it, and like I photographed for an artist friend of mine. Her name's Tammy Campbell, and we just photographed 40 pieces of art last week, and they are very consistent. Like they're like sort of the same thing but different. And then I thought about the Ramey art gallery has the Picasso lino cuts, like the biggest collection of them. And if you look at those, that's like, there's like I don't know how many, like someone can correct me. I think it's like 700 or something that the Ramey owns. And when you look at those, they're like, he's got 10 of one thing, and then even between things, they're like, there's a lot of consistency. And I'm kind of thinking like, back to the story.
Right, by your original measure, they would also be craftspeople, but that's not what they are.
Yeah, and there's this story about, there's this, I can't remember the book, but they did a study, and they had a university class, a pottery class. They took half the class and said, make as many pots as you can, and the other half of the class, they said, make the best pot you can. And guess which part of the class made the best pot?
Which one?
The one that made the most. And so then I go back, so this is like a funny thing I'm kind of like exploring as myself. I've been a photographer for 12 years now, and it's like I've kind of been denying this artist thing, but also like maybe the best art is because you're like a craftsman, like I don't know, and like in many things, like a craftsman happens before you're like the master. And so like for me, it's like, over like 200 weddings. Like this year I've shot like 200 projects like already, and we're at like August. Like I've just like, I don't know, 8 terabytes of photos and videos. And
sure. So you're seeing around the corners more than you used to. So, and you're able to anticipate things a little bit better than you used to, and maybe put yourself in the right position to get a moment or a shot or an emotion that you maybe wouldn't have anticipated 200 weddings ago.
Oh yeah. There's this whole thing too about like a creative person like gets a voice when they so for example, a pianist who just copies Beethoven or whatever, like they're going to be that person. If they start writing their own music, it will be very in line with that artist. And if you start expanding more, you'll start to get a voice at around 10. This is just like a number I've heard. And so I definitely feel when I go photographing now versus then, it's like I have my own voice I'm using to create. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the part where you become the artist. Like you're really defining. Like I don't look for inspiration on Instagram or like, not that I'm opposed to it, but it's like I kind of have this lens I see everything in, pardon the pun, but like literally like I perceive the world the way I do. And I think that's where I have my own sort of like eye for everything. Like I see things a certain way and I'm like, I think almost like a conviction. I'm like, I take my camera and I'm like, I think based on what you said you want, this is the best way to get what you want with all of our limitations and advantages. Like, you know, an advantage would be like great lighting or great equipment or great subjects or great creative, like, or great, you know, I might have said location. You have all your advantages and you have all your disadvantages, like weather, location, models, gear. Like they're all there. That's all you have, and use that. And it's like you have to, as a photographer, like it's like, okay, with everything we have, this is the approach we're going to take.
And I think this is, okay, so like, let's talk about that for a second, because you and I both work in industries that have a relatively low barrier to entry, a very low barrier to entry, which means that there's lots of people doing it.
Yeah, everybody already has a computer, so
right.
You don't even need that. Adobe Photoshop's free for 30 days.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's still a way to get a cracked version of it if you really want it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't.
But what you said, I want to make sure that we talk about that for a second. Is like, you were saying, like, although like you've got whatever, you're dealt the hand that you're dealt on the wedding day or during the shoot, and then everybody sort of has to look at you, even though you've been given a mandate on what you're supposed, like what the deliverables are supposed to be and what the end result is. How you get there is still like, it's still up to you, and everybody's still looking at you to make sure that we all get there. And same thing with me, like, and that's the real differentiator is the fact that like you need to sort of pilot the ship and get to the deliverables in a way that that fits all the different variables that can or cannot be accounted for. And you do a better job of that over time just by having done it.
Yeah.
And I guess like even for myself, man, like I have found lately, I've struggled with the idea of being good enough for whether it's like some of the jobs that I do or some of the contracts or some of the clients I'm involved with, and just, you know, sort of being concerned about like, am I good enough or whatever, and like. And I really hate the statement, fake it till you make it. Like, I get it that you can't always have everything completely under control, because if you do, you're not growing. Like, there have to be some things that you're uncomfortable with. But I also don't like the idea of people that are just completely in over their head and have sort of bullshitted their way into the position that they're in. And then just being like, well, we'll just fake it till we make it, and we'll do whatever we have to do to make it work. I don't like that either. But I've become like more and more confident in what I do, just because like at the end of the day, and I think you're the same way, because I'm gonna ask you about your routine in a second and about your schedule in a second. But when you do it every day, like how many years have you been doing this for?
I just made a post on Instagram like 12 years ago. I bought my first DSLR.
How many weddings do you think you've done?
Like 220 or something. Like
220 weddings.
220 weddings, like, I don't know.
How many portraits do you think you've shot? Professional headshots?
Like, I think this year I'm at like 80. Like I just, like I'm at this point where it's like I've photographed the same people like 3 or 4 times, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like hundreds and hundreds. Like I was thinking about it the other day, like hundreds of people even last week just alone. Last week was kind of busy because I was on holidays for July. So a lot of stuff just got scheduled into beginning of August. And like, I think it was like 40 people I photographed. 40 different people in 1 week in different types of capacity. I was like, this is crazy. Like,
it's impossible for you to suck, man. You've been doing it too much.
I'm definitely making the most pots. Like,
yeah.
You know, when I think about it like that, like,
You don't have to be like, and when you're making the most pots, like, this is the difference between what we do and what pro athletes do. Some people are just gifted. They're just born gifted, and they're born freaks, and they get to live a life that is special and unique because they were born with bodies that other people don't have. And then there's 99.999% of the population. And if you do, for those people, if you do one thing long enough, you're going to get pretty good at it. And I would say you're pretty damn good at what you do. Like, look at this place. Like, your studio's great. Like, your equipment's always really cool. What's that camera that you just bought? You just bought a new camera, right?
I'm a nerd. I got it.
That's another thing that I love about you.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of tell funny stories, or I don't know. Like, in high school, I was the painter and the artist. Like, I drew and painted, and then I have this like nerdy side where I love tech. So I just got that instant 360 camera. So I have a 360 camera. I got a GoPro. I'm gonna make a vlog about the instant 360 at some point. We're rolling here on 3 4K cameras. We're shooting the show in 4K.
Yeah.
Which will be consumed probably on a phone.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
Hardly even be able to appreciate it, hey?
Yeah, it's not
that it matters.
It's almost just like, well, it teaches me something about like what it would take to do that. Now it's just, we shot like 14, 15 now. Now I know how to do it for a client. Mm-hmm. Like, I know where I keep making the mistakes, so like I've figured out ways to not do them. Yeah.
I think like also like for the sake of just like what like the conversation, like we've also probably been doing a better job of being able to fill the space. It's so funny, like I always totally undervalued like how hard it is to keep a conversation going if you knew that somebody else might be listening to it. The conversations always flow so easily in a one-on-one setting, but you're not really aware of any dead space because it doesn't really matter. But in a setting like this, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, like you never want to have dead space. But I think that's the nice thing about doing this with you.
Yeah.
If I don't have anything at the moment, I'll just look at you and hopefully you'll have something.
Which is funny. We sit on this like love seat here for all the episodes.
Well, it's nice and comfy, It's
kind of
cozy.
small. It's an office.
It's cozy.
Depot or whatever, a Source office furniture chair you'd see in almost any office foyer, and it's like we both sit on it. And
this is
it's like,
so
what's going
far.
on? You ask a question.
This is so far from chic. This whole thing, this whole operation, but man, I'm having fun doing it. And like I said,
you had a couple friends tease you about it.
Oh, for sure.
And then I just told you, I was like, oh, you should just invite them on the show.
Yeah. That's actually that's so good. That's such a good way to diffuse that. So if you're one of my friends and you've made it this far, which I doubt you have, but if you have, and you start giving me a hard time about it, that's an open invitation to come on, and we'll talk about whatever it is that you've got going on.
I kind of feel this will be something that people binge here and there. Like I don't know. You'll find one person that one of the guests you like, and you'll watch for the guest.
Yeah. But
then maybe you'll keep it in your earphones or keep it. It'll show up on your YouTube again or something. And
Maybe it's quite the little experiment. I feel like I can listen to interesting conversations between Joe Rogan and David Goggins and hear about a dude that has broken a bunch of bones in his foot running a 100-mile run while being like 270 pounds and hardly ever having ran before in his life. Like, that's really compelling stuff. It's a really interesting story. You can consume media about anything now. I don't know. Like I don't really know where the whole where media consumption is going. But I don't know if there's going to be any interest to listen to local people doing long form interviews. But I guess whatever. Like I said, I feel great about doing this, and at least right now, because I haven't been scrutinized by anybody that I know yet, or people that I don't know, but. I think it's at the end of the day I'm doing it for myself and just to get sort of over the whole fear of it. But
yeah, well, there's like this benefit to just the conversation. Like you have a good conversation with someone, like already you have a benefit. Like, so someone sits in here, if the cameras weren't rolling, it still is good.
Yeah, it's a good use of my time. Spending my time hanging out with you, it's always a good use of my time.
You're gonna ask me about my schedule, and then I want to move it to some show things.
Yeah, tell me about your schedule. You've created so many humans. You've created 3 humans. Like that's got to be difficult.
Yeah, so I have 3 kids. I've been married for 12 years. Being married's really easy. Just kidding. But it's very rewarding. Having a family's good. It's kind of funny. Like a friend of mine was talking to me about different types of fun. There's like mode 1, 2, and 3, and mode 1 is like not fun. It's like it's not fun when you're doing it. It's not fun in retrospect. Mode 2 is like it's challenging when you're doing it, but like like hiking a mountain, but like or a marathon. But it's fun to say you did. It's fun to have the accomplishment. There's joy there. And then mode 3 was like, and I could be messing this up. Mode 3 was like it's fun while you're doing it and when you talk about it. And I feel like being a dad is like partly 2 and partly 3. Because like a lot of times it's like hard, but it's like good when you look back on it. Like we went to the X this weekend, this past week, the Saskatoon X. It's like I went there prepared. I'm just gonna stand in lines for hours and hours, and then eat donuts, which is great. Like
donuts are sweet.
Watching the machine make the donuts, and it was great. And good moments in there, but like overall, like it's like a challenging thing. Like my kids have to go to the washroom right when we're in the front of the line to go on, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And then so that's my home life, and being a photographer like has definitely changed. Like my kids grow up, my home time's more precious. It's it's like a thing to balance, like all the things. And I think maybe the better way to explain it is like owning a business and being a family man is good. Like it's funny because like my kids drive me to like work harder.
Yeah, you said that. Explain that.
Which it's really like it's almost abstract because it's like I don't have a backup plan either. Like I don't have some sort of degree or something to float on. If all else fails, like it's like I don't have that. Like I joke like I would be a realtor or something. Like something you just have to be good with people or something.
Yeah.
But I can't go be a teacher or a nurse or an engineer or whatever. Like I don't have those credentials. And so, I work hard for my kids. I treat my business like a business. And like, as I've gotten older, like that has been like the biggest shift probably in the last 2 years is like, I'm not just a guy with a camera who, thinks of it like $70 an hour or $50 an hour. Like, I don't think of it like that. I think of it as like a service for people who need problem solved. I have staff. I have time I need off. I need to get things done for my clients.
And you do things like professional development. Like you have a business coach. Like you share your business coach with other people. But
yeah,
one of the things that I love about what you do with that respect of your business, to that respect of your business. Is like the quarterly planning that you do. Also, it gives you like I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Like the emotional highs and lows of entrepreneurship are like really wearing on me lately. Like the wins are so high, the losses are so devastating. I'm so emotionally and a lot of my self-worth, my perceived self-worth is so tied up in this thing that I have built and it's being in service, like it's just tied up in it. And so being told no or...
Like your identity.
Yeah, it feels...
literally tied in a...
And it feels like I'm being rejected as a person. And I know that it's not that way. But also then it feels like when I win, it's like, I won. And sometimes it's like, no, you're fulfilling a need that somebody needed. and you want it, but like, you know, get over yourself and go do the work and move on. And I think the way I've been thinking about, and I'd love to hear what you found the biggest benefits of doing your quarterly planning are, but one of the things that I like about the idea of quarterly planning or just longer-term planning is that instead of really like relishing in those sometimes weekly moments with the highs and lows, you've got your vision set on something that's further away, and it sort of mutes and dims
the emotions.
Emotions of some of the things that are happening immediately.
Yeah, I would actually literally say that's what it does for me. Is like gives me something to aim at. That if I even get close or even halfway there, it's still like pretty awesome. And that's kind of the point of a goal. Like the biggest goal you make is with a bit of luck. Like literally the phrasing that I was told is like, if you worked at this for 25 years and things just kind of went your way, had a little bit of luck, what would that look like? That's where you aim, is like there. And it's like, it doesn't matter if that will how even likely that is to happen. It's like you aim there. And then you kind of break it down to like literally the day to day. Like, so I make decisions based on that whole big dream, which is connected to my values and who I am. And I think that's really taken the emotions out of the highs and lows. It's like I see a longer term thing, and I can see more trends, and it's very like, I don't know. It's really encouraging to me.
So you're kind of starting at the end point and then reverse engineering back from there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that you have something to work towards.
Yeah.
Which in the photography world, like people are they're not thinking long term, which is okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be a business for everybody, but it's like, you know, if you're struggling and you have an idea of what you want, a lot of people have an idea of what they want, and maybe it's not even what they want. They just think they want it. Like here's a good example. I want to be on a beach in Mexico 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
If you really thought about that, many people would be like, no. Yeah. Why would I even pick Mexico? Yeah, the sun shines, it's great, it's warm. But
yeah.
You know, there's even more.
Yeah, most people would be bored out of their minds.
It's just like a lame target to aim at.
Yeah.
Like it's not rooted in who a person is. For some people it could be true, but you'd probably find not a lot of meaning in that. And I think when you can root things in your own values and meaning, you can really, like my week last week was the busiest week I've had in a long time. 18-hour days, 20-hour days. And I drove home on Friday. I got home at 11:30 p.m. and I was like more thankful than ever. I was like, this week was crazy. I was holding my camera. I said I was like shooting, I think I shot 40 portraits, or 40 people, like families, business owners, the city of Saskatoon executive leadership team, like just like tons of, like a broad range of things. My kids were in like university camp. My wife was working, craziest week. And I'm like, but I ended the week feeling thankful instead of burnt out. And I think that's the difference of doing that, is you can like, the challenge lines up with who you are. And so the reward and challenge together are like, help you grow. I don't know. Anyway, we're kind of on the back end.
I really enjoyed this. I thought we did a great job today, man.
Yeah, I was going to talk about one thing, but I forgot what it was.
We kind of just did like 2 mini episodes, hey?
Kinda. Here's what it was. My favorite thing about this format is the conversations we have, even with people. So Dustin and I both take turns, you and I take turns putting people in this chair. What I found is that people who I think I know, I always learn something more. And it's like, we're only talking for 50 minutes. It's just, we're very intentional. And that might be my favorite thing, is like, it's not just like, who do you know, what do you know kind of stuff. It's like it gets a little deeper into like, it just goes a few conversations deeper than you'd normally take it, you know? And I think that's like, the show name Before the Dust Settles, like, it's kind of like really based on ideas, and like, we don't know how things are going to go, if they're going to go one way or the other. And that's like literally the spirit of these conversations is people who are like moving in a direction, with an aim, don't know if it's going to work. They've had success, they've had failure, and it's like we're kind of meeting them along the road. And I don't know. Those are the kind of conversations I like live for.
That was well put. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well put.